maximum pressure campaign will continue.
North Korea now changing its tune after President Trump pulls the plug on the Singapore summit. Will the two leaders ever meet face to face, or is Kim Jong-un back to his old antics? We're live in Washington with reaction. And armed and ready, a good guy with a gun credited with saving lives when a gunman unloads a barrage of bullets inside a crowded restaurant. Why police say if it weren't for him, this could have been much, much worse.
Every year, it gets increasingly difficult to affirmatively reward work ethic.
Hard work in high demand. Mike Rowe ripping the safe space mentality that is making millennials afraid to get their hands dirty. Fox and Friends First starts right now.
What they're giving, 'cause I'm working for a living.
Thank you for joining us on this Friday morning. A live look at New York City, where lots of people will be getting up and working for a living. Hopefully you as well. I'm Heather Childers. Let's get straight to our top story for you. A lot happened overnight. To this Fox News alert to begin with, North Korea now signaling that it is willing to talk to the U.S., quote, anytime, just hours after President Trump calls off the Singapore summit. Griff Jenkins is live for us in Washington, D.C. So, Griff, the question, could the talks still happen?
It might, Heather. Good morning and happy Friday. It was the latest provocation, though, from North Korea and the failure of officials to show up at a planned meeting in Singapore that escalated things and drove the president to pull the plug.
I believe that this is a tremendous setback for North Korea and indeed a setback for the world. If and when Kim Jong-un chooses to engage in constructive dialogue and actions, I am waiting.
The president also penned a direct letter to Kim, the first on communication between the two nations' leaders. And now North Korea saying it's willing to sit down for talks, quote, at any time, at any format, according to their vice foreign minister. In South Korea, who was caught off guard by the president's decision, received a late night call from Secretary of State Mike Pompeo as President Moon appears optimistic of the process, saying in a statement, quote, denuclearization and the lasting peace on the Korean Peninsula cannot be abandoned or delayed, as they are the historical assignment. The sincerity of the affected parties who have been working to resolve the problem has not changed. Reaction on Capitol Hill from Republican lawmakers was swift.
We must continue pressure to bring this peaceful denuclearization, to make it a reality. But we can't want that peace more than Kim Jong-un does.
I think language, sometimes on both sides, gets things too ratcheted up, and then that prevents the diplomacy from occurring.
But House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi had this to say.
He got global recognition and regard. He's the big winner. And when he got this letter from the president saying, okay, never mind, he must be having a giggle fit.
Later this morning, the president delivers the commencement address at the Naval Academy in Annapolis, where graduating cadets, Heather, may learn more from their commander-in-chief.
Then therefore maybe we'll learn more as well. Griff Jenkins live for us. Thank you, Griff. Have a great weekend, although it will probably be a busy one. Also breaking right now, a manhunt is intensifying. It's underway for two men wanted for setting off a bomb, leaving more than a dozen people injured. 3 people critically injured following the blast that happened at an Indian restaurant, we're told, in Toronto, Canada. Now, the unidentified suspects, they were caught on security camera. Their faces were covered, though, you can see there. It is still unclear if the attacks, though, were terror-related, so we'll keep you updated on that. And then back here, an armed man turns into a hero when he shoots and kills a gunman on a rampage. Police say that the Good Samaritan pulled out a pistol and stopped the gunman in the parking lot after he shot a mother and daughter, her young daughter, inside this restaurant. It's called Louis on the Lake. It's in Oklahoma City. That hero potentially saving lives.
We just felt so fortunate that there was someone there who was able to stop it before more people were hurt or killed.
Well, the mom and daughter celebrating a birthday when they were attacked. Both are expected to survive. That's the good news. 2 other people injured. Police say that the shooting appears to be random. Well, Republican leaders demanding more transparency after the Department of Justice holds a fiery meeting on Russia probe sources. But Democrats still insist that there's no evidence of a spy in the Trump campaign. Todd Pyro joins us now live with the latest on this. Good morning.
Good morning to you, Heather. A day which should have led to some common ground ended with both sides digging in on what the president calls Spygate. The classified briefings were held by the FBI and Justice Department in an effort to ease Republican pressure over the Russia investigation. They came amid the president's outcry over revelations that a confidential informant made contact with several of his advisors during the 2016 campaign. Controversy surrounding these meetings from the start. First, the invite list. In the end, one meeting was just Republicans, the other was bipartisan. Second, on the appearance of White House Chief of Staff John Kelly and White House lawyer Emmett Flood at one of those meetings. Democrats calling it improper. In response, White House Press Secretary Sarah Huckabee Sanders explained, quote, neither Chief Kelly nor Mr. Flood actually attended the meetings, but did make brief remarks before the meeting started to relay the president's desire for as much openness as possible under the law. They also conveyed the president's understanding of the need to protect human intelligence services and the importance of communication between the branches of government. After making their brief comments, they departed before the meetings officially started, end quote. Because the meetings were classified, participants couldn't go into too much detail with the media afterward, but he loves the cameras, Heather. Democrat Adam Schiff still held to his party line.
Nothing we heard today has changed our view that there is no evidence to support any allegation that the FBI or any intelligence agency placed a spy in the Trump campaign or otherwise failed to follow appropriate procedures and protocol.
And notice Schiff didn't say anything about surveilling the campaign, just about a spy in the campaign. That's a distinction that Democrats love to make. Keep in mind that this week the DOJ asked the Inspector General to investigate whether there was, quote, inappropriate surveillance. A lot of to-do about nothing, it seems. Right. Obviously, they learned something, but nobody's talking.
Yeah, and Democrats have already made up their mind.
Yes.
So why is there an investigation?
And why did the Democrats demand so much to be in that meeting when they'd made up their mind anyway?
Yeah, and they didn't request any of the information either. But all right, we digress. Thank you so much. Have a great weekend. Yes. Well, nature's fury growing more ferocious by the day with no end in sight. A third lava flow. These pictures continue to amaze me. They don't look real, but they are. This is pouring into the Pacific Ocean off of Hawaii's Big Island. The lava creating what we've told you is called a laze. That's a mixture of toxic gas and shards of volcanic glass. Officials are now warning people near the flow to be ready to evacuate at any time. And dozens of buildings have been destroyed since the Kilauea volcano erupted earlier this month. Scientists don't know how long this will last. Well, a school bus driver charged with homicide in a horrific crash that left 2 people dead. Huddy Muldrow Sr. will face a judge for the first time today. Investigators say that he made an illegal U-turn on a New Jersey interstate and then he crashed into a dump truck, killing a 10-year-old girl and a teacher who were on a field trip. Muldrow has had 14 license suspensions and he now faces up to 20 years in prison. The teacher killed in that crash, Jennifer Williamson, just laid to rest. Well, disgraced Hollywood producer Harvey Weinstein is expected to turn himself in today. He plans to surrender to New York City authorities and will reportedly be charged over sexual assault allegations. Dozens of women. Weinstein is also under investigation in Los Angeles and the UK, and he faces a federal probe. He has denied those allegations. Well, they still refuse to respect our flag. NFL players reportedly already making a new protest playbook in spite of the NFL's new rule. The league now requiring all players to stand or remain in the locker room. Teams will be fined for any player violations, the team in general, not the individuals. But one NFL media reporter says, quote, some players are telling me they're considering staying in locker room or making a different on-field gesture simply because they feel this new policy is a direct challenge to them. And a Navy SEAL receiving the Medal of Honor from President Trump for his heroic actions in the fight against al-Qaeda. Now, Britt Slavinsky is sharing details of the 2002 rescue mission in Afghanistan. Listen.
We landed on top of the mountain. My helicopter took rocket-propelled grenade fire right away. Crawled over the top of John looking for some sign of life from him, and I didn't get any No movement, no sound or anything from him. I can tell you, we left no one behind.
Well, some claim that Sergeant John Chapman, who Slabinski thought was dead, fought until his death after the group abandoned the mountain. 7 Americans died in that fight. Well, the time now is about 10 minutes after the top of the hour, and President Trump drawing a hard line with North Korea, canceling the landmark summit. So was it the right move? Why, our next guest, who has dealt with some of the worst regimes in the world, says that that's exactly how you handle a dictator like Kim Jong-un. And Alexa has some explaining to do, the private conversations that Amazon's smart device just shared without permission.
You don't get much higher than that, do you? Thank you, Donald. I voted for you.
Well, just days after a 96-year-old World War II veteran receives his diploma, he gets something even more amazing from the president. And we want to know why you are a proud American this Memorial Day weekend. Share your pictures with us on social media, and we'll share them during the show on Monday.
It's cities and farms, it's open arms, one nation under God. It's America.
Well, the White House revealing that North Korean officials stood them up at a recent planning meeting for the Singapore summit. North Korea now changing its tune, saying that they are willing to talk anytime after President Trump canceled the historic sit-down, issuing a stern warning to Kim Jong-un. Here now to weigh in is Israeli counter-terror veteran Aaron Cohen. Aaron, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Good morning, Heather.
Well, let's begin with this. First, were you surprised that the initial thing happened with Kim Jong-un and the meeting was canceled? Then were you surprised that Kim Jong-un's response was, wait a minute, I am willing to talk?
No, well, I was a little surprised that he canceled the meeting because I thought that President Trump had put something together pretty significant up there, and it seemed like we were going in a really positive direction, and it seemed like the president's tough posture on Kim Il-jung was working, and that Kim Il-jung got it. But apparently, the coffee, the drop hadn't exactly hit the coffee pot with the Korean dictator, and so I was a little surprised about that. But what I was not surprised about was two things. It was President Trump saying, you know what, let's not meet with this guy right now, and let's dial this thing down and put some proper pressure tactics on this dictator, which is how you have to be with these guys. And the reason why is because it was the same thing with Muammar Gaddafi. It was the same thing with Saddam Hussein. It was the same thing with the leaders or the mullahs in Iran right now who just got cut off and had their nuclear deal completely disconnected. And that's the way you have to deal with these guys, Heather. They understand one thing. They understand power. They understand fear. And that's the way they lead. And President Trump is doing an outstanding tactic here, or performing an outstanding tactic by putting a stranglehold on this guy right now, because you have to show strength.
What about this letter that apparently he dictated himself word for word? We have part of it right here. He said to Kim Jong-un in the letter, you talk about your nuclear capabilities, but ours are so massive and powerful that I pray to God they will never have to be used. So, talking like that to Kim Jong-un, what type of strategy is there? You've dealt with some of the, as you mentioned, some of the most horrible rogue regimes in the world, and you think that this was the appropriate tone to take?
I do. I think that you have to be tough with people who try and act tough. I think that if you break down the psychology into the behavior of these dictators, what you have are essentially street bullies who bark and bark and bark, but have the potential to do a great deal of damage in order to save face. And what you have with President Trump is somebody who's throwing the gloves off and understands that you have to run into that type of fire head on and direct. And that's the only thing that these guys understand. So the tougher you are with them, the sooner you are tough with them out the gate, the sooner you show them that our reaction is not going to be to appease them. Our reaction is not going to be to take any type of threats from them lightly. And our reaction is going to be to counter with a very important tactic that we lost prior to this president, which is aggression. Aggression is a national security tactic.
And definitely not leading from
Trump.
behind. Yeah, but at the same time, it was interesting in this letter that he still makes sure to leave the door open.
Correct, and that's a really important part of diplomacy. But listen, the left can say what they want about President Trump, and they can make fun of him all day long. But at the end of the day, this guy's been negotiating deals his whole life, and that door remained open, and it continues to be open. And if Kim Jong-un, if the leader of North Korea decides that he wants to step back in the door, there's enough of a crack for him to do so. And it sounds like President Trump is willing to sit down at the right time.
I just thought it was so unfortunate because at times it does seem like the left, members of the Democratic Party, didn't want this to succeed so far. Aaron, thank you.
They don't want Trump to succeed, and that's their problem. They need to get over it.
All right, Aaron, thank you so much for your insight. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Heather.
Great stuff. Well, the time now is about 18 minutes after the top of the hour. And the Obama channel, Healing the Nation, the former president revealing the vision for his Netflix deal, saying that it will fix the political divide. Carly Shimkus here with reaction pouring in on this one. Good morning.
Thanks for your service. Thanks for doing this. But this is an actual practical example that we're appreciated.
And how they plan to honor our fallen heroes this Memorial Day weekend.
Fill your cup up. Let's tear it up.
Welcome back. You're watching Fox and Friends First. A plane forced to turn back just moments after takeoff when pieces of metal fall out of the engine of the Japanese flight heading to Tokyo, reportedly dropping at least 10 metal parts onto the community below, hitting a medical clinic and a parked car. No one on the ground, luckily, was injured, or anyone in the plane. They weren't hurt either. Inspectors say that the jet's turbine blades were damaged. Well, the owners of a puppy that died on board a flight we told you about have reached a settlement with the airline. A United flight attendant placing the 9-month-old Kokito, who was inside a travel bag, into an overhead bin. That happened back in March. Well, when the plane landed, the dog was not breathing. The terms of the settlement have not been released, but United has taken full responsibility. Oh, you see the little doggy there. And they've revamped their travel policy, limiting certain breeds from flying to ensure their safety. Well, from president to producer, former President Obama has some big plans, apparently, for the deal that he just inked with Netflix. Carly Shimkus with Fox News Headlines 24/7, Sirius XM 115 is here with how he plans to heal the country. Good morning.
Good morning. So when the deal was announced, we really didn't know a whole lot about it, but now we know what kind of shows the former president wants to create. Now, he wants to help heal the nation's political divide by telling people's stories so Americans can better understand and relate to one another. He revealed this during a conference in Las Vegas, saying, "That's what we hope to be a voice to through Netflix and through my foundation, where we're identifying and training the next generation of leaders here in the United States and around the world so they can start sharing their stories and cooperating." And while this is undeniably a noble mission, he was met with a whole lot of pushback from some conservatives. Stephen on Twitter says he wants to fix the mess he created. That's nice. Dave tweets because he did such a good job of it in his 8 years. And Rhonda writes, #cancel Netflix. So given that reaction, looks like he's got his work cut out for him.
Yeah, similar reaction when we initially heard about the announcement, so it hasn't changed. We'll see if when it actually hits the air, opinions change. So Melania, the First Lady, sending a message to our troops.
That's right. She honored the Congressional Medal of Honor recipient yesterday on Twitter, saying, "Thank you, Master Chief Slabinski, for your heroic actions. At POTUS and I are proud to have you at the White House today to honor the #Medal of Honor. Thank you, and thank you to all of our military who risk and sacrifice your lives for our freedom." Well, she's not the only person who was thanking him. Another person on Facebook wrote, "Thank you, Master Chief Slabinski. You are a true hero." And Sharon on Twitter says, "Thank you, Melania." I guess she's thanking the First Lady for recognizing these brave people who serve and protect us. So he received the award for his brave actions he took in Afghanistan in 2002.
Right.
Incredible story.
Yeah, it was. So if you're watching, you're more than invited to come on because we would love to hear your story.
Absolutely.
Viewers certainly
Hands
would.
down.
Yeah.
Good idea.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much.
Have a great
Appreciate
weekend.
Yes, you too.
Well, the time now is about 25 minutes after the top of the hour, and undocumented kids in school beware. A new warning that ICE could be coming for you. And are parents on their phones too much? One kid apparently thinks so, and he wrote a letter to his mom telling her the blunt note that is going viral this morning. We are back with a Fox News alert for you. North Korea changing its tune, saying that it is willing to talk with the U.S. anytime, at any format. This happening just hours after the president pulled the plug on the Singapore summit, which had been scheduled for June 12th.
I believe that this is a tremendous setback for North Korea and indeed a setback for the world. If and when Kim Jong-un chooses to engage in constructive dialogue and action, I am waiting.
The White House saying that the rogue nation failed to show up to a prep meeting for what would have been a historic meeting between the two leaders. The president also penning a direct letter to Kim saying the maximum pressure campaign will continue. So if North Korea stood U.S. officials up for their pre-summit meeting, why are they now saying that they're open to talk at any time? Retired Army Lieutenant Colonel and Republican congressional candidate Michael Waltz says that it's because President Trump called Kim Jong-un's bluff. Listen.
Well, President Trump has shown strength from day one as commander-in-chief, and I think he's been absolutely right on North Korea since day one, despite all of his critics. This is not President Obama who's going to take the military option off the table before he even gets to the table. President Trump knows and has always known that diplomacy needs the credible use and needs the credible threat of military force. He has come into this with three key preconditions, in that military exercises with our South Korean allies and our Japanese allies will continue. Denuclearization means exactly that it is full, verifiable denuclearization.
Well, the South Korean president, hoping that talks will resume, insists that denuclearization on the Korean peninsula cannot be abandoned or delayed. Also breaking right now, some brand new videos showing underground tunnels once used by ISIS. The Syrian army uncovering the terror passageway along with a machine used to dig new routes underground. Well, the tunnel discovered as officials work to clear Syria of explosive devices left behind by ISIS. Back at home, Republicans are ramping up calls for transparency after the DOJ's fiery briefings on the FBI informant. But Democrats say they're still not convinced the president's campaign was actually spied on.
And from my standpoint, the top priority of this investigation is to reveal to the public exactly what happened so we can restore confidence in both the FBI and the Department of Justice.
Nothing we heard today has changed our view that there is no evidence to support any allegation that the FBI or any intelligence agency placed a spy in the Trump campaign or otherwise failed to follow appropriate procedures and protocols.
So here to help us understand how these briefings could impact the Russia probe is former DOJ official Hans von Spakovsky. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. We appreciate it.
Sure thing.
So what did you think about what happened yesterday? There was one meeting with Republicans, and then there was another meeting that was bipartisan. Just the general layout of two separate meetings. What did you think?
Well, you know, the saddest thing about all this and most disappointing is that it took pressure from the president to get DOJ and the FBI to do this. This is something they should have done 8 months ago when the House Intelligence Committee first started investigating it. And they are right. Transparency is needed for this reason. It is unprecedented for the government to launch a law enforcement investigation and do surveillance of an opposition presidential campaign. And we need to know, did they actually have hard, substantive evidence of major violations of federal law? If they didn't, then there was an abuse of the law enforcement powers of the federal government.
Why do you think the DOJ has delayed and delayed this?
Well, that's the big question. I will tell you, the Russia collusion investigation so far, as you know, hasn't produced a single piece of evidence that there was ever any collusion. But what that investigation has raised is a lot of questions about potentially abusive behavior by FBI and DOJ officials, and the idea that what they may have really been doing is launching a partisan investigation against an opposition political campaign.
Right, and these are high up in the DOJ
That's
and
right.
the FBI. These aren't the men and women who are out there every day doing a great job. In terms of the Chief of Staff, John Kelly, and the attorney for the White House, the lawyer Emmett Flood, there's
Right.
been some discussion about whether they have been there or not. From what I understand, they were there just at the beginning, and they left before anything that was classified was actually discussed or released.
Yeah, but that really shouldn't have been an issue, because what everyone forgets is that the president is the chief law enforcement officer of the United States. He has the full constitutional authority to be completely briefed on all aspects of this investigation, and that would include anyone working for him. So the idea that there was something wrong, even if they had been briefed, that is just a false flag that isn't true.
Mm-hmm. In terms of the president and what he can or cannot release, could he just get involved in this and release information himself?
Yes, he has the ability to declassify any information. And here's the thing everyone should remember. Congress has 100% right to see all of this information because of its constitutional oversight authority. And that's why DOJ and FBI's constant delays and attempts to not give them information is just legally and constitutionally wrong. And it makes you wonder, what are they trying to hide?
Yeah, even going back to the Strzok and Lisa Page text back and forth, why doesn't President Trump just say, okay, you have to release these?
Well, they are being released. Remember, the Inspector General apparently has gotten a hold of all of these, and we're expecting a report soon. And look, the president has acted. That's the only reason that briefing happened yesterday. But there appears to be still a lot of attempts by DOJ to stop doing what they should be doing.
Right. Yeah, with the latest information about the spy or the spy that wasn't the spy. Thank you so much, Hans. We appreciate you joining us.
Sure thing. Thanks for having me.
Have a great weekend. Well, the time now is about 20 minutes until the top of the hour, and hard work in high demand. Mike Rowe is invading the safe space to send a message to millennials.
Every year, it gets increasingly difficult to affirmatively reward work ethic.
Well, he's not the only one who feels that way. Jackie Ibanez here with your comments flooding our social media pages. And hi, Jackie. And this 96-year-old World War II veteran finally getting his diploma, but what he just received from President Trump making him beam with pride even more.
This is a democracy, and I sincerely think that we are the guardians of that. We'll tell you what is going on, and you can decide what you think of it. But you have a right to know. In fact, you have a duty to know. There's a lot going on underneath the surface. How will historians assess this moment? I really care about what happens to the country. This is it. This is all I'm ever going to do. It's all I've ever done. It's all I've ever wanted to do, and I'm grateful for it.
Welcome back. Good work ethic. It is apparently hard to find. Mike Rowe slamming the newest generation over its apparent lack of desire to find a good job. He says that they're putting their feelings over everything else. And joining us now is Jackie Ibanez. She has more on the story. So they don't want to work hard, or they want
something for
more
nothing
than they work. Yes.
Yes. All right. Well, the former Dirty Jobs host not holding back, voicing his concerns over finding qualified young people in the workforce. He says he's even having trouble giving out his trade work scholarships to high schoolers. That's free money.
I'm in the midst right now of doing what I do every year, which is try and give away work ethic scholarships. It gets harder every year. So,
wait, it gets harder to give away money?
You have to write essays and make videos and sign a sweat pledge. And when people are often confronted with these hoops through which I ask them to leap, they take what you call umbrage at that, and I find it fascinating.
So they actually have to work for it. Among the tasks in that sweat pledge, Roe requires young people to not be lazy, not blame others for their troubles, not expect to be taken care of, and if anyone is offended, find a different pile of free money. Roe says this lack of work ethic goes back to society's push to harbor young people inside some safe spaces.
Work ethic is very much in demand. But to answer your question, why is it harder to find it? I think that probably does have something to do with the expectations that have evolved out of the safe space movement. There's a fissure running through the expectation of what happens when we elevate safety and feelings to a level of primacy.
Each one of Roe's scholarship awards up to $15,000 to a high school senior going to a trade school.
I like that. I like the sweat pledge.
It kind of reminds me of the 30-year-old that got evicted from his mom and dad's house. Well, so we've been asking you on social media. You're chiming in. Gary says Mike is always right. Amen. Mike is right a lot of times. David tweets, unfortunately, he's right. Many just want a paycheck, but they don't want to do anything to earn it. And Ron tweets, the days when you went to high school and worked part-time are over for most. The activity of actual working has been placed by video games and cell phones that are supercomputers. Seems about right, too.
Yeah, everybody wants a job where they create an app and then sell it for millions.
Yeah. Well, wouldn't
Me
it be
too.
nice to get paid to do nothing?
Me too. Who wouldn't like that? No, I like that. Sweat equity.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Have a good weekend. Well, March to the midterms. Twitter rolling out stricter rules ahead of the election season. Tracy Krasko from our sister network, Fox Business, here with the new tool just launched for political candidates. Good morning.
Good morning, Heather. Yes, this is to increase transparency, also to curb any sort of manipulation before the midterm elections. So Twitter has laid out some things that they're going to be doing. They're going to be making sure that anyone who wants to run a political ad is verified and certified. Some will even have to submit a notarized form. They're also not going to let anyone from other countries target political ads to people in the United States. They're going to be checking their online presence to make sure everything is consistent and that it works out. And then you'll also notice a visual badge that shows that these groups have gone through all of these steps and that they are, in fact, able to submit these political ads on Twitter. So you'll be noticing all of these things taking effect.
I have no doubt. Well, this weekend we should thank and remember our military vets, and there's some deals too.
Yes, this really is a great weekend to honor those who have served our country. So a lot of businesses are doing something. Domino's, you can get for $5.99 a 2-topping large pizza. That's only a carry-out deal. Also, Golden Corral free breakfast there. Hooters, a free meal, and